Hey, everybody, it's Monty Mott. I want to thank you again for investing in the Shareholders podcast. Man, it's a blessing to be here. God is good. I have a great guest in store for you guys. Again, I want to tell you what, and we always say this, man, once this pandemic's over, I'm going to go some places. I'm going to do some more things. And I'm glad I went to where I went. This was actually kind of during the pandemic, but I went to an event, met some great people. I wasn't going to go, and I was like, but I was glad. And shout out to Erica. She's been on the show as well, and I've met some great people. And one of those people is my guest today, Mr. Dominque Campbell. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. How you doing, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, man, I'm good. I thank you for being on. And
What's up?
of course, as some of you know, I host two different kind of shows. I host a music show, but then I host a business show. This, of course, is our business show, the Shareholders podcast.
Right.
My guest, Mr. Campbell, could be on both because he is a musician. He's very well. They actually got to hear him. They performed him and a couple other guys with some singers, which was amazing. And I'm gonna have a few of those more people coming on, and they did such a great job. But he put out a post a couple days ago, and it really, I said, man, I got to get him on because he talked about some things that are very pertinent in these times, and even some topics that have been kind of prevalent for a lot of years in music and churches and things like that. So we're gonna get into it. So let me just ask you from the start, man. How'd you even get into the music? And I know you're a percussionist and things like that. How'd you get started?
Man, I started playing drums at 3 years old at my grandfather's church. I was born and raised in Oakland, California.
Okay.
And my grandfather's a pastor, my dad's assistant pastor, my mother's a praise and worship leader. I'm in a family full of singers and musicians and preachers. So, and I grew up Kojic. So for people who don't know what that is, that's Church of God in Christ, which means you're probably going to dance at probably about 205 BPM for about 3 hours straight. And you're going to need to change your shirt. And
Yes, sir.
after church, and you're going to eat some chicken, some macaroni and cheese, and whatever else they're going to fix in the back. And yeah, man, that was my upbringing. So at 3 years old, I started. And I'm 32 years old now, so I've been playing for 29 years. So I've been playing drums for a long time. I did drumline in high school and some other stuff. So yeah, man, it's been a journey, but it's definitely something that's a passion. You see my drum stuff sitting over here now. It ain't going nowhere. So, but yeah, so it's definitely a passion of mine, and also a profession now as well. So yeah.
So let me ask you then, man. You've been experienced enough. You've been in the game for a while, and you've been able to play and make a career. What would you say makes a good musician? And I'm not talking about like who's better than who, but I'm just in terms of the craft. What makes a good musician?
Right. A good musician is, first of all, somebody who's going to perfect their craft outside of a performance. So a lot of cats only practice when it's time for them to play.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't they don't always put in the time. So to be a good musician, you're gonna have to put in work when nobody's calling your phone for a gig.
Yeah.
When you're just having to get to the basics and understand what your purpose is as a musician in whatever area or realm that is. So like as a drummer, is knowing what to play in the moments that's necessary, is knowing how to play your part, is knowing how to lock in on a groove and allow the people to move in the way they need to, depending on what genre of music you're playing. And I play all across the board. So I play rock, I play jazz, I play standard traditional jazz. I didn't play hip hop jazz. I didn't play fusion jazz. It's all across the board. And then I play predominantly in church. So, and then I've also done percussion gigs, or I've been like a part of parades where the marching band was playing in the parade. So I've done all of this in different aspects. And it's just really knowing how to play your part and knowing how to position yourself kind of in the market, if you will, against what other people can do. Because any and everybody can play, but what distinguishes you? Why do you get the call? And also being punctual. I mean, it sounds silly, but being late, a lot of musicians have a history of being late. So for me, and they don't always respond quickly, right? So I've gotten gigs where I get calls back just because I respond.
Wow.
Like I have a rule where I respond to a request within 24 hours, as long as I see it.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, my response rate to somebody inquiring about me playing for an event or whatever the case may be is usually in less than 10 minutes. as
Wow.
long as I see it, right? So, but yeah, being punctual, knowing what to bring for a gig, right? Like it's just a lot of different factors because every gig, you know, if you're in a small space, don't bring your 7-piece drum set, right? It makes no sense. But you know, guys, you know, they overplay people and they expect to get compensated, and people be tripping about money, and so it's
Yeah.
a lot of different factors. But at the end of the day, like being a good musician is being punctual, playing your part, and being able to have the versatility to, if you need to, you know, improvise, or if you need to, you know, take a solo, you can do it effectively to where it's not drowning out the artist, but it
Yeah.
also is letting everybody know, hey, I can handle my business when it comes to my instrument, right? So, but yeah, just and dressing properly. I know it sounds weird to talk about all this stuff as a musician, but like guys don't, you go into a corporate gig at a job, you know, for Gap or, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
Hewlett Packard or something. Don't come in there smell like weed, and you know, come on, man. We so you gotta know how to
That's
you
real.
have to treat yourself like a business in a sense. Like you gotta know how to do what you need to do, where you need to do it, and be effective in it. But I mean, yeah, for me, those are all qualities of like a good musician at the end of the day.
Wow, man, you just
Yeah, so
did
I
so many
mean,
great things on that. You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny too because I've had some musicians on the other show, and a lot of guys say one of the main things is punctuality. Like, be
Oh
professional.
man, it's
It's
man,
crazy you
I'm
got to
telling
say that, but you
you,
know,
you get calls back for it. I mean,
yeah,
literally, we know
and
you're gonna show up, and we know you're gonna be here on time.
yeah,
So
that
it's
that's a
man,
huge
it's huge.
thing.
So, yeah.
And I want to get into something real quick. You spoke about where there is kind of a stigma in the more secular music world in terms of a church musician, and especially sometimes with drummers because they feel like drummers do too much and they don't stay in
Yep,
the pocket. And
yep.
you know, part of it is most of us, like you say, we come up playing in church,
Hmm.
so there ain't really a lot of rules. You know, it's not a lot of structure. You just doing whatever. But then when you get with an artist, so you get with somebody, I remember I might be dating myself, but this is way back. There was a show called Making the Band.
Oh
And
man, that was the one. I remember
you
that show.
remember,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And Diddy had these guys come in, and
Mhm.
some of the judges were judging guys and like, oh, he might be playing in church or something, and he's this certain way. And like you just spoke to, knowing how to play,
Yep,
knowing, you know, don't step on the singer, don't step on the
yep,
guy. And when you get your
yep.
time, there's a lot of talented cats, but a lot of guys don't really know how to play.
Yeah, yeah. And it depends on your level of exposure too. So a lot of cats, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we dig into like, you know, some of the following questions, but a lot of guys don't have the exposure to who's at the top because they
Mm,
don't do their homework. So
yeah.
before YouTube, when I was younger, I was probably like 15. I ran into this website called drummerworld.com. Well,
Yeah.
drummerworld.com was YouTube before YouTube was YouTube, right? And they had every drummer you could think of that was playing for any and everybody, Aaron Spears and Billy
Yeah.
Cobham and Dennis Chambers. And I mean, you could go up and down the list to the new cats to all the way back to the old cats like Vinny Caliuta and, you know, Dave Weckl and
My
Steve
man,
Gadd and all
Dave
these
Whipple,
guys,
yeah.
right? So yeah, man. So like, you know, you could learn like from all these different guys, and you could listen to them. Will Kennedy, who played for the Yellow Jackets, right?
Uh,
You could, and for me, it was kind of like a history lesson in the drums. So like every day for probably like 2 hours a day, I'm on Drummer World. Like I'm not doing nothing else. Like I'm just
yeah.
listening and looking at their profiles and who are you playing for and what are you doing and how are you doing it, and understanding like the history of what guys are doing. And I think a lot of cats now, because of YouTube and stuff like that, they don't have the discipline to do that because they don't know who to look for all the time. You're
Yeah.
only looking for cats based on your Instagram or your, you
Right.
know, social media stuff or whatever, or you type it in, you finding them on YouTube if they have YouTube content up,
Hmm.
which is a whole nother conversation. But if they have YouTube content up, and then you might be able to learn something that way. But I don't think guys, you know, always had a discipline to learn like from back then to now. They only kind of stick with up to date and then kind of move forward, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I want to ask you personally then, when did you realize for yourself, like, hey man, I'm kind of good. I could make it. Oh no, we want to be humble and all that, but let's tell the truth.
Yeah.
Like, where I could maybe make a little career out of this. Like, when did that kind of click for you?
For me, it was at 17. So um my mother has been a professional like singer and musician and artist for like gospel singer for I mean, before I was born. My whole
Oh, wow.
family was like a choir. So my grandfather used to write all the songs for the choir, and they would sing. And my grandfather's name is Robert Lyons. So,
Okay.
you know, now it's like, well, I'm 17 years old, and the reason it was at 17 specifically was at 15 years old, I was part of the jazz band at Oakland Technical High School. And we did what was called like the jazz ensemble, with all the schools in the district would come together, and all the schools would do their jazz song representation, whatever they want to do. So Skyline High School was like the top jazz. They had like 15 to 20 different people in their jazz band. They had flutes and saxophone players and pianists and the whole get down, right? We had 3 people in our jazz band from Tech, right? So it was the bass player, it was the piano player, and me on drums. And we would play our little jazz tunes, and, you know, we got off the stage, and one of the guys who was there, he went to Skyline. He was my buddy. His name Mark McGee. And he was like, "Hey man, you sound dope." He was like, "You should come to my church, like, you know, and we could shed." I didn't know what that was, and I was 15. Yeah. So I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna shed. Like, what's that?" "Oh, we just gonna go to the church. We're gonna practice all day." "You could do that?" He was like, "Yeah, I got the keys." I'm like, "Okay." So he literally came pick me up from the house at the time, and from 15 until 17, like, we would go to his church during the summer months. We would go to the church like from 8 o'clock in the morning some days till like 2 in the morning. We was there all day playing music. He's showing me stuff. I'm learning things. And by the time I got back into high school, that's when Drumline started. So the two of those together was kind of setting in my mind like, hey, I could really do this for a living. And then Drumline, the movie came out, and it was a wrap then. Yeah. So but yeah, so like at 17 is when I really like realized like this is what I really want to do, and I want to try to further a career in doing this, and, you know, push into doing that. So yeah, it's yeah. Wow. At 17 was when everything kind of started for me. So,
and that's
yeah.
awesome. That's
yes,
a great story too, man. That's
yes, sir.
It's funny how you get hooked up with people and you don't know where it's leading.
You never know. Yep, you never know.
That's awesome. So let's take a turn in this, man. Let's kind of get now toward the business side of this. And like you said, you grown up in church. I've grown up in church. Kojic, you know, I grew up Kojic. My church is not denominational now, but I've been, you know, what we about to get into, I wasn't even aware of until I probably went to AIM, or else I went to a convocation. And, you know, and we were out of church, got in Christ, but I just wanted to be around some musicians and some singers and stuff and connect. And this thing, there was an actual class, and it was a lot of musicians in there, and they brought it up in the class, and they were like, "What do you guys feel about rate of pay or being paid at your church?" Now, my old Kojic church, you know, it was very, very small. You know, the pastor would not get in, so we didn't even occur to us about that. But it was a lot of different opinions. I'll put it like that, and not that anybody was wrong, but it was a hot topic, and it still is. And so I want to get your take on, especially with church musicians, and what do you feel about being paid? How much to be paid? Should they be paid? You know what I mean? What is your perspective? Right. What's your experience?
Yeah, so for me, I do believe that you should be compensated. It is biblical that the Levites were compensated at the time when the tabernacle was initially constructed with David, right? At the same time, I see it from 3 different vantage points. So the issue becomes like, as far as rate of pay, right? So the issue becomes where you have people who are lazy and they're looking for something to do and be able to get paid for doing, you know, 10 hours worth of work a week, maybe max. And they're getting probably from between, you know, whatever they're getting, right? And then you got the other guys who are leveraging the church, right? Where they're doing it to basically kind of fill their pockets as kind of another part-time gig, right? Where their skills could go from beginner all the way up to advanced, but they're not really there for God. They're really just there to, right? They're really just there to, you know, add some more dollars to the pocket to do what they need to do. Then you got the group who loves God, right? And their skill level could be from beginner to advanced, right? And those are the people where they really would serve either way, whether it was volunteer or they was being paid. Right. But their heart is right. And so because their heart is right, it you feel more of a joy, or, you know, that type of thing for paying that particular individual, right? But for me, as far as rate of pay, I mean, for me, rate of pay goes in the business sense to your skill level. Like, what do you do? And what can you do as far as your versatility, as far as playing your instrument? How advanced are you? What do you add to the table as far as musical knowledge? But there are several issues that I have with the church too.
Yeah.
So we talk about rate of pay, but we don't talk about retirement, and we don't talk about requiring musicians or helping musicians to learn how to read music.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Right. So for me, it's like, if you're going to talk to me about who I am as a servant here at your church, and you're going to talk about compensation, well, me learning how to read will put me in a whole different like musical category, because now I'm more of an advanced musician, right? And then you're helping me to build my retirement, because basically you care about the future and the longevity of my life and not just my gift. So it's kind of it's kind of a catch-22 in a sense, because everybody's talking about rate of pay, and I'm like, rate of pay is the last thing I'm thinking about. If you pay me $100 a week and I have retirement and you help me learn how to read and I'm 17, 18 years old, I'm doing way more than everybody else, right? Because what it's going to do is expose me to opportunities that I wouldn't get otherwise, right? Which will eventually increase my pay, and it will help me to be better and more advanced. But that's me thinking with my other I guess business savvy mindset when it comes to like what is ultimately the necessity of rate of pay. But like I said, I feel like it's based on skill level. Now other people have a whole different, because they go into, what do you love God, and are you a member of the church, and all this other stuff. And I feel like at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with whether you're gonna pay me the rate you say you're gonna pay me or not. That's just personal preference, or what you are deeming a requirement, when none of that is really a requirement.
It's complicated, man. Because like you say, there's different groups of people. You kind of have mercenary guys and guys that are just coming and making pay, and then some people that love their church. But I feel like for musicians, especially church musicians, that's the only profession where sometimes people don't want you to play anything secular and all that, but then it's like, well, how am I supposed to eat? It's like if a guy was going to be a dentist at the church, he not just going to work on the saints' teeth, he going to work on everybody's teeth. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It's like,
exactly.
And it's a real because you don't, you want to, you have a, and I tell people, because sometimes you hear people say, well, if musicians getting paid, everybody's getting paid. I'm like, well, no, because here's the thing. Ain't no disrespect, but I could teach you to usher in probably about a week, but can't everybody play bass? Can everybody play drums?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That takes your life. That's a hard thing to learn. It takes a lot of practice to do that. So it's a specialized skill. So and it's amazing because this comes up so many times. I remember I was in the elevator and I heard two guys talking, and they were like, yeah, man, going to this conference, I'm just seeing if I can, they need a choir director, so I'm trying to get this career going. He's like, yeah, man, because I'm pulling in. He said an amount of, I ain't even gonna say the amount. He said an amount of money, and I guess he was the choir director and the praise team leader. And I stopped. I said, you making that at a church? He's like, yeah, that's my job. And I had never heard of that before.
You got people making six figures.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy because like so many people, it's sad because a lot of times we hang our hat on in church and in ministry, especially, like a lot of people hang their hat on spirituality, but I feel like people they stop coming to church because of how bad business is being handled.
That's a real that's a real thing.
Like but I know that ain't topic of conversation. But it's just business being handled correctly for a lot of people. You don't have to be a large congregation to handle business right, and that's I think where people get they mess the whole thing up. Like it's. But yeah, I mean, as far as that's concerned, you got people making six figures doing executive work in church.
I had a friend that told me way back that she played clarinet, and I said, oh, I didn't even know she had played clarinet. She's like, oh yeah. She said, they helped me in college. I said, oh, you played somewhere? She's like, yeah, I played for my church. They was giving me about 150 a week. I said, you was getting 150 a week for clarinet? No, clarinet, love y'all, but man, that opened my eyes too.
Let me go pick up one. Look.
I said, I've been messing up this whole time, but so okay, man. I also want to. We can talk on that all day. That's a whole.
Definitely.
That's a whole conference right in that. But I want to get to it as well. So you talked about in your post about helping musicians, and you've already kind of alluded to retirement and things like that, and helping them financially.
Right.
I want to ask you then, what is well, first let me ask you this.
Yeah.
With the pandemic and the COVID and things, how has that affected you as a professional musician and people you know?
Yeah, so for me, it basically it was almost like you standing on the carpet to go into a tour or another whatever, right? And then somebody pulled a rug from under your feet and was like, nope, none of that is happening. So you got this calendar lined up, so in March it was supposed to be this was happening and that was happening, this album and that tour and this, that, and whatever.
Yeah.
And literally like 70% of my income like walked out the front door.
Wow.
So it's like, well, what are you gonna do? And then in the church I was playing at, the following week, I didn't even know. Like the following week, checks was gone. Nobody was getting a check on the musical staff.
Wow.
And it was almost just kind of like, all right, well, we here for y'all if y'all need us, so y'all figure it out. It's like sink or swim.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm very much so a person who is adaptable and is very like flexible and knows how to pivot in certain areas very well. So I'm also like a minister as well. So like it for me, preaching opportunities and doing things. You see this Turning Point t-shirt sitting up here. That was a ministry I started last year. And literally I pivoted more so into that until the gigs started coming back around and opportunities started presenting themselves again musically, where things shifted to virtual. So now it's kind of like, some of the income has come back, but it's nowhere near what it was, before. So you just have to figure out how to make do, so for a lot of guys, I was getting a part-time job or whatever they was figuring out. For me, I'm very much so a business savvy individual. So I'm always thinking long-term, the future, and when it comes to money, I'm always talking about how to build like a immediate play and then a medium play that's going to take a little more time to get to, and then a long-term play. As far as finances is concerned. So it was like, okay, well, my immediate play is out the window. So what am I going to do? Right? How am I going to figure it out? Take care of the bills, do what's necessary for my children. And then a process of like how to reestablish myself and what it is that I'm actually supposed to be doing musically. And for me, it was like, it's no way I could sit up here and talk about money all the time and not understand money to its fullest. So I ended up getting some education on financial literacy because I wanted to know how to be more impactful with helping other people like take care of their money. I mean, everybody want to know how to make some more money, but everybody don't take out the time to learn how to do it. I mean, legally, let's just say. So, but yeah, so I took some time, got educated on that. I joined a financial team that literally brought me up under their wing, taught me different stuff regarding tax code and retirement benefits and different plans that'll help people. And now I'm working to basically, like, I have a project 1000, where I'm literally trying to help 1,000 musicians to build their retirement, because most musicians, even when they're on tour, they don't have health coverage, neither do they have retirement benefits. So, and I'm always the person who's trying to help like whoever I can, that's just my nature. So that's my goal right now, is to help, musicians to basically, between now and the next 20 years, you're looking at $1 million sitting in the account that you can have access to over time. Because most guys in the musical world, I mean, even the top guys, it's gonna be, unless you're doing it all, on all fronts. You're doing the production side and you getting credits and you're doing film scoring and you doing, you selling out stadiums and all this other stuff. Then that's one thing. But for the average guy in most cities around the country, that's not the case for them. They playing at local mom and pop little pubs or a supper club, or they may get a corporate gig, or they may get a church gig where it's cool. But I mean, to reach 6 figures, the average guy is not doing that. So yeah, that's my goal in helping guys to understand and educate them on the importance of that. Because a lot of people, musicians got kids and stuff. And I mean, I'm seeing cats go to the strip in Vegas, like, I mean, and playing drums on the strip, trying to put the coin or the bucket or the hat or the cup or whatever out. And out here it's kind of the same. You got cats busking is what they call it, like you hitting them buckets and you doing. So it's the same, type of game, but just trying to do some stuff to educate us financially to take what we're doing to the next level. like the importance of understanding how to monetize a podcast. A lot of people don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if
I've
you
learned
love
that.
your instrument, right? See, so if you love your instrument, right, that's something I learned too. So I also got into live streaming as well. So learning how to leverage like StreamYard as a service I use. Now I offer it as a service for different people and they compensate me for it.
Mm-hmm.
So
See,
it's just learning, like I was saying, how to pivot, right? And just be good at your craft. But I wouldn't have done that and I wouldn't have had that drive to do that if it wasn't for music.
yeah.
Right. Just learning how to perfect my craft and be professional in whatever I'm attempting to learn and do. So yeah.
It's funny too, man, because with musicians and with athletes,
Yeah.
you know, there's so much practice we have to put in, you know, and that actually builds a discipline that some other people might not have. But and it she is paying off for you. And you, man, you said so many great things just then where, you know, I want to tell people, you know, I've said this before on different shows, but a lot of millionaires, they have a lot of different streams of income. So you might have a gift in one thing, but as you just heard Brother Dominique say, you know, he had to start flipping and doing some other things. He actually had to learn some financial stuff. And I've talked about this as well. It's a shame how even coming up in school, we don't learn nothing hardly about how to manage your finances. It's crazy. And so many of us get behind the 8 ball and we don't know, but it's a great thing you're doing, man, where you're trying to help your brothers because you've been out there and you've seen, and that's the thing about it. I know some people might be like, man, that cat's on stage playing with this person, or they at a concert, they at a tour, but like you say, ain't no health insurance, ain't no union, you know, ain't nothing to protect these people, you know. So that's a great thing you're doing, man.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to that.
You know, just trying to satisfy the needs that you or the niches that you know can be effective to help people at the end of the day. I mean, for me, it's kind of interesting. Like I've always been in a place where it was almost like God would like sharpen my eye or cause me to focus on like different gaps that people are just not paying attention to on large scales. Like, I want you to build right there. And I'm like, what? Like, nobody's doing this. Like, what do you mean? Like, why am I, what is it about me that you want me? And he's like, I want you to do it. I don't want you to ask me no more questions. Like, get to work. And so it's like, okay, like, so, I mean, even when it comes to like, you know, doing like Turning Point, like that's a whole nother side of what I do. Because I have a drumming brand and then I have a ministry brand in a sense. So, but yeah, like I'm learning right now, I'm currently in the process of learning how to build courses. Right. So once that process transpires, I already know what's going to happen. Somebody's, hey man, I need some help with a course. Here you go. This is the price. This is, so it's just, like I said, it's learning how to pivot into certain areas where you learn a skill set. Right. And my big deal is growth. So like, and sustainability. So for me, if I can't grow in it and it's not going to be something that's going to be relevant 5 to 10 years down the line, I'm probably not wasting my time. And so for me, it's like, no, these things aren't going anywhere, right? Like somebody's gonna always need to learn, right? And somebody's always going to need to capture this information and have it done in a professional manner so that it can be sold. So when you look at over the last like 5 to 7 years, e-learning has done almost $29 billion in revenue. So it's not going nowhere.
No, yes, that's here to stay.
It's just looking at things through that lens, like, okay, well, this is going to be here clearly, because you got distance learning now. You know, my daughter is doing distance learning. She's in kindergarten, so this stuff is going to be here. But in what area will it impact, like the future, right? So I'm working on building out an academy and courses as well within that academy confines, and building like a community where it's all about business and the Bible. So that's something else I'm working on too. So, yeah, man, you gotta stay active, man. When you know, a prayer life is real, but God ain't gonna, you know, He ain't gonna hand it to you. You gotta go get it. So
that's the truth. That's the truth, man. I've enjoyed this conversation, man. Just a couple things more before you go.
Sure.
Have you had any mentors, anybody, even, you know, musically or business wise, that have kind of helped you along the way? You know, I know I try to tell everybody on here as well, you know, you need help. You can't do it on your own. You know what I mean? People got to kind of, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. So anybody that you can think of for you.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. I've always been blessed and fortunate to be friends with my mentors, which is crazy. So, one of my mentors musically is this cat out in the Bay Area named Aaron Green. Aaron Green has played for like SWV and like he's played for a lot of different people. And me and him talk all the time. And he was like, bro, like you have the talent, like you have the wherewithal. Like me and him would sit down and practice together all the time, right?
Yeah.
But I watched him, like, even on his journey to where he had to make a critical decision about, like, okay, well, do I stay home for my family because I have a younger daughter and I do local gigs, or do I go back out on the road?
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing the road for a while, but he even played for like Guapole, right? So it's like just different. He has a huge catalog of people he's played with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this cat is like a family man who had a part-time job working at a tire shop, and you know what I'm saying, took care of his family, did the local gig route.
Yeah.
Even was teaching drum lessons at Guitar Center at one point. Now he's doing his drum lessons at home,
Wow.
digitally online, right, through Zoom or that type of medium. So it's like, man, like he always keeps me on my toes. Like, hey, what you working on? What you doing? What's going on? And what can I do to help you? Right. And then look at it this way. Don't look at it this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you out here playing, but like, are your kids cool? And what's going on with your money? And
Yeah.
how are you handling your credit? And what's happening with this and that and whatever the case may be? And it's a great dynamic for me because he's a little older than me. Like, and he influenced me in so many different ways, but he's always like kept me on my toes. So it was like, yeah, we cool, but I don't want you to be comfortable. So what you working on? What you doing? You know what I mean? And it always kept me
Good.
sharp, like to stay like looking into the next thing, right? So yeah, man, it's important to have mentors for sure. The importance of a mentor if you don't have one, because for years I didn't, right? I didn't have like a real mentor, so I was probably like 24, 25.
Mm.
But the benefit of having a mentor in whatever area is basically they literally will like they will aid you, like in they will give you wisdom and game and insight to
Mm-hmm.
where you don't have to spend years trying to figure out one answer. So they'll tell you
Exactly.
this simple solution that it might have taken them 5 years to figure out. They'll tell it to you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so if you take the action, you'll be ahead of them, right? Like
Yes.
years ahead of them. But you have to be willing to take that advice and be humble enough to receive it and take, of course, corrective action and do those different things so that you could benefit from what they failed at for a period of time trying to figure it out. But yeah, man, I mean, honestly, that's the only reason I know half the stuff I know is because I like hanging around people who've been where I'm trying to go. And I
That's
don't have to be the
man.
smartest
That's
person
it.
in the room. Like I don't mind being dumb in the room. Like, cool, everybody's smarter than me. Cool. What we doing? Pen and notepad out or my notes in my phone. Man, you think I'm texting? I'm in there writing notes. Like I ain't responding to nobody. I'm in here trying to soak up this information so that I could take whatever I'm building and take that to the next level. And then turn around on the flip side and now like give back to those that are younger than me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's it just keep the cycle going. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what it is for me with
Man,
mentor.
listen, y'all, that's the point of a mentor is
Yep.
they've done some things that maybe you're trying to do and they hit their head against the wall. Now listen to them so you don't hit your head against the same wall. You know what I mean? That's
Seriously.
Seriously. Man, I've enjoyed this. Oh, real quick, man. Any good books you've read? Anything lately? Anything? Or
Yeah. So I'll talk to you about books actually. So I know that like I've always desired to be a CEO, right? So I know the average CEO reads between 52 and 60 books in a year.
Yeah.
So what I tried to learn how to do is juggle like 3 books at a time. So that's like a current personal project, if you will,
Yeah.
of mine that I'm trying to learn how to do. And the reason I do it is because so you have your AQ, which is your adaptability quotient, your EQ, which is your emotional quotient, and then you have your IQ, which is your intellectual quotient, right? So I try to build all 3 of those simultaneously. So right now I'm reading for emotional quotient, I'm reading The 3% Man,
Mhm.
right? It's an excellent book. And it's basically talking about how you as a man need to be one of the 3%. You can be in the 3% mentality of a man when it comes to emotional relationships if you understand these particular principles.
Mm.
Is a great read, right? And then another book that I'm reading is called The Purpose Economy, where
Mhm.
it's basically teaching you like if you want to build a nonprofit, how to basically push your idea into the market of your profitability, even as a nonprofit, to solve whatever issue you're trying to solve versus everybody else. So for every major issue that happens in society, you have 1,000 to 1,100 different companies that are vying to solve that same issue.
Wow.
So the question is, what are you going to do to separate yourself from them? And how do you go about that? Right. So, and then another book that I'm reading is called Demons, and that's by Michael S. Heiser. So Michael Heiser is his specialty is angelology and demonology.
Wow.
So that deals with my spirituality and expanding my insight on, demonology in that sense. Because I'm an avid reader. Like, I love to read. I love to study. I love to, gather information because I always want to impact other people. So I just want to be an asset in whatever room I'm in, not a liability. So that's my whole thing. That's kind of why I go after the books I'm reading right now. Is the 3% Man, is The Purpose Economy, and then Demons by Michael S. Heiser. So
hey, listen, man, I'm gonna have to steal that. That AQ, IQ, EQ thing. That was pretty deep.
Yeah, that's, man, listen, yeah, man. And having children too, like, that's also one of my motivating factors. So it's like, I want to be a well of knowledge and a resource for my children when they ask questions, and I'm not just giving them this old, Sunday school answer. Like, man, no, I want you to think about some stuff before you just decide to just do whatever you're getting ready to do. So yeah, I mean, that's I'm always up for a challenge. I'm always trying to figure out how to grow, how to expand, how to be better. And of course that comes with God, but it also comes with your ability for you to understand who you are in Him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I know that I tried working for other people. It irritates my skin. And it's don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to a 9-to-5 or whatever, an online job or a corporate gig or whatever. But it's just, for me, it's like I have too much in me that I know that I'm capable of, and doing that just doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people are like, well, man, you should get and so and so. And I'm like, look, that's not a part of my game plan. That ain't a part of what I'm trying to do. And I know that I have the capabilities, and I have the educational prowess and the Holy Spirit inside of me to operate in a way to where I can accomplish these things. It might take me a little time, right? But the same 2 years you were putting this company to get a $3 raise, I didn't put that same 3 years into myself. And I've grown exponentially in ways that you couldn't imagine, right? So you take your pick. I ain't nobody, you do what you want to do, but I'm trying to have like a 12,000% increase over a 3-year period. I'm not trying to do $3. So that's just, mind you, I've had like every job you could probably think of. So it ain't like I ain't never worked. Let's be clear. I ain't lazy by no means. But I've done those jobs. You work for the corporations and you do the company dinners and you do all these other things. And it's just like, man, like, no, it's more to my life than doing the rat race. I just, I had to hang it up. So I could push into, ultimately what I'm called to do. So yeah, man, it's a journey, man, but I'm enjoying it, and just sticking to the process and just continuing to inspire and motivate and encourage people to be better every day. So yeah.
Man, that was awesome, man. That's a great way to end it, man. Man, Dominique Campbell's on the show. This is the Shareholders podcast. Monty Mont here. I mean, we're gonna have to have him again on the music show, but I wanted to talk business, and I'm so glad we did, man. This was so good just to hear, and a great perspective that you had. Let people know, where can they find you, and just your plugs.
I'm on Instagram at Rhythmic Radical. I'm on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn under Dominque Campbell. So you'll find me there on either one of those places and spaces. So man, I'm grateful to be a part of this interview, and I'm grateful that you are continuing to remain committed during this time, man. It's definitely needed.
Yeah, man, and I really hope if you're a young musician out there, hit him up. He's got a lot of experience, and especially for those financial. I mean, because
if you ever need me, my number is 510-210-1300. So you could text me there. You can call me on that number. That's my business line. And I would love to talk about strategies that'll help your finances and how to monetize some of these areas that'll set you apart from other people when it comes to playing music and building music. So
most definitely, things are starting to slowly open back up. It's not as what it was, but it's getting there. So you want to be ready, So hey, thank you, man, for the time. I really
man. I appreciate you for reaching out. For sure.
Mr. Shareholders, check us out, of course, MightySharpShow.com. We got all the content there for you as well. Be blessed. Have a great day, Brother Dominique. I appreciate
you too, man. Until next time. Appreciate you.
This has been a production of the Mighty Sharp Network. Executive producer is Monty Mont. Watch the corners and always stay sharp.